Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast on this 2nd of December 2020. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald-Quinn, discussing the world of sports and pop culture. I hope everybody out there is being safe and hope everybody is having a great evening. Of course, we are just coming off the heels of Pittsburgh getting by Baltimore 19-14, improving to 11-0 on the season. Baltimore falls to 6-5. Not a shocking result. Pittsburgh had plenty of opportunities to really make this game easier than easier on themselves. It really shouldn't have been a one possession game, to be honest with you. Give Baltimore credit for hanging in there. Defensively, they played well. They'll be kicking themselves in terms of how they handled the clock at the end of the first half. Also, probably want to kick, one of the referees, officials, for not calling a delayed game penalty in that sequence of plays that in which they end up running out the clock on the incomplete pass that was broken up. I seen that play not called 1,000 times as far as when a player gets tackled, run back gets tackled, a player gets tackled, and the defensive player falls on top of them to try to run more time off the clock. I've seen that not called more times than not. So that's a judgment call. Probably should have been called, but they did not. They burnt the timeout too early in that possession. So they really mismanaged that entire that last sequence of plays. And in that type, and again, this is a one possession game. That was, the game at that point, that game is 12-7. Even if you get a field goal, you're in a position where, 12-10, they end up getting a touchdown. Pittsburgh, they're down 19-17. And, they probably, driving or have a chance to, take the lead with a field goal instead of having to score a touchdown. It didn't matter late in the game as Pittsburgh would go on to run the clock out and get a just getting by type victory for Pittsburgh. This game, of course, was a defensive game in regards to how it was played. These two teams always play close games, even without a multitude of players on both sides, especially Baltimore with no Lamar Jackson. And Mark Ingram as well, Mark Ingram Jr. as well. So this game the game probably shouldn't have been played. To be honest with you, the NFL is going to go, is going to get this season done through hell or high water. You saw what happened with Denver. You see how many games have been. Pittsburgh will play. The Pittsburgh-Washington game has been postponed till next Monday, pushed back to Monday. You see the Dallas-Baltimore game being pushed back to the following Tuesday. So the NFL is going to go out of its way to make sure that all these games are played. And I think this is going to be one of these seasons. Unlike the NBA with the NBA bubble, I think that COVID will have an impact on who is holding the Super Bowl trophy at the end of the season. I really do. I just don't think it's going to be avoided. We are in the midst of record cases across the country. COVID is having its way with the country right now. We know that there are vaccines that are being worked on as we speak. Three different vaccines, but those vaccines are not going to be ready in time for when the NFL season is over, and the people that they do go out to will not be NFL players. And first people that are going to get those vaccines are going to be medical people and first responders and people in nursing homes and what have you, and which should be the case. So the NFL, I think the NFL, frankly, does not care if a team that has no business winning the Super Bowl wins the Super Bowl. They don't care about the integrity of their sport in regards to a champion and who's in the Super Bowl and who wins it. They're just trying to get the season over with. Period. They're just trying to get the season. They're just trying to get the season complete. So unlike the NBA, I do believe that that COVID will have an impact on the team holding the trophy at the end. As far as Pittsburgh goes, Pittsburgh goes to 11-0, 11-0, and you're going to start to hear rumblings about possibly going undefeated. They still have a couple of tough games left. I believe they're at Cleveland in the final week of the season, and they have Buffalo following Washington. So they should be 12-0. With all due respect to Washington, who was playing well defensively and had a big win Thanksgiving evening, Thanksgiving afternoon against the Cowboys. But we know what the Cowboys are like this year. So they should be 12-0 going into that Buffalo game. The game is at Buffalo. We know Buffalo on a given day can play with any team in the league. We know Buffalo is going to be probably more likely is going to be in the playoffs and is in prime condition, prime position, I should say, to win the AFC East. So Buffalo's a very good team. If they don't lose to Buffalo, it's that they don't lose to Buffalo, then it becomes a distinct possibility that they can go into that week 17 game against Cleveland undefeated. It's a very distinct possibility. So again, I think this Pittsburgh team is one of the two best teams in the league, along with Kansas City. I don't think this is a great Pittsburgh team. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're an all-time great Pittsburgh team. They have a great defense. We know Roethlisberger is back. Is going to be a Pro Bowler this year, and should get some MVP consideration. But he's not getting. He won't. Those two candidates. We'll talk about those two candidates later on that completely kind of separate themselves from the rest of the pack in regards to the MVP race in the NFL. But we know this is a very good Pittsburgh team. Obviously, very good Pittsburgh team, and they're going to win it with their defense. And if they do win the Super Bowl, they do get to the Super Bowl, it will be because of that defense. That defense, is dominant across the board. Across the board with the pass rush and with their secondary as well. So as far as Baltimore goes, Baltimore has lost I believe 3 straight games, but they're not playing terrible football. Like some of their losses their losses have been very close losses, to be honest with you. I mean, both Pittsburgh games were 1-possession games. They lost a close game against Tennessee. You look at again, they've lost a number of closely one-score games. So it's not, that team, if they get to the playoffs, and right now if the playoffs were to start, they would be out of the mix, even with the extra team this year, even with the NFL having 7 teams, 14 total this year because of COVID. That team finds a way. If they find a way to get to the playoffs, they will be a dangerous team. You do not want to face Baltimore in the playoffs. They're well coached. They're a tough team. They're excellent defensively, and they have, of course, the ultimate weapon in Lamar Jackson, who, despite the fact that he hasn't been great this year, is still a very difficult player to plan against and to play against, to game plan against. So I wouldn't totally dismiss Baltimore. Again, even before this losing streak, I didn't think that they could win a Super Bowl or get to a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. But I'm not totally thinking that I'm not ready to totally toss them over the cliff, despite a 3-game losing streak. Today, other headlines going on today, you have, of course, LeBron James signing a 2-year, $85 million extension to basically, I would say, finish his career as a Los Angeles Laker. When that extension is done, he'll be on year 20, and he'll be 38 years old. And, it's not out of the realms of possibility with LeBron that he could play past 38, especially with the prospects of, his son possibly, his son at that point would be, I believe his son will be 18 at that point, 18 or 19. I want to say 18. And one thing about that, let's not assume LeBron may want to play with his son, but let's not assume that Bronny James is going to go straight, is going to be good enough to go straight from high school to pros. Uh, I've seen the YouTube clips, seen the Instagram pictures where he's had his growth spurt. Surprise, surprise, his father is 6'9", 270. So at some point he was going to grow from 6'2", probably to he'll be probably about 6'8", 6'7", 6'8" himself. But he's grown a couple inches, gotten stronger. I'm not saying he's not a good player, and I'm not saying he won't make the league, but I'm just saying we should not assume that he's going to go pro or be at that level to go pro directly from high school. Yeah, I have not heard that talked about enough when it comes to when the conversations have been brought up about the idea that LeBron will possibly could play with his son or play his stretch out his career to make that a possibility But getting back to the contract, listen, LeBron, you know, I'm not surprised by this. 2 years, $85 million. The Laker organization has surrounded him with a team that can compete for a championship for years to come. They're going to sign. Anthony Davis is going to resign. It's just a matter of what type of contract that he takes. He could do a 2+1 and become a free agent and get to a point to where he can command 35% of the salary cap. So it's just a matter of not if, but when he signs with the Lakers and how long his deal will be. So they're going to be around for the foreseeable future as long as LeBron stays healthy and doesn't completely fall, just doesn't completely just go into the tank. Which again, there are no signs that that's going to happen anytime soon. At least within the next year. At least I give LeBron at least another 2 years to be maybe not so much the best player in the world, but be a guy who could be a top five guy, a guy who can be an All NBA caliber player. So his son is there in California. He has a bunch of houses in California. Just bought a new house. We know what he's doing with the movies and the production company. So why not sign this extension? Like, you know, there were thoughts that maybe he was going to become a free agent in 2021. He's 35 years old. And at a certain point, you want to settle down. You don't want to be in the spotlight in terms of have that kind of spotlight on you every time you become a free agent. So I think I completely understand why LeBron made the decision. They're coming off a championship. The organization is in the best shape it has been since, the 2010s, the 2010s or the 2000s, or the 2000s through 2010, and it's an ideal situation for him to be in at this stage in his life. So and he's in a great place in his life right now. So why upset the apple cart by going through another free agency? Where is LeBron going to end up? Or what is he going to do? Will he jump to another team? It's just I think that this is the move to, if you're LeBron, you want to establish a Laker legacy, and one title will not do it. If he wants to, if he wants to be in that conversation, or talk about being the GOAT and what have you, you got to win multiple championships, and winning multiple championships is no better place to win multiple championships than with the Los Angeles Lakers. This is all there is to it. So completely not surprised by this by any stretch of imagination. Now on the screen, as you can see, I have the Christmas Day matchups. The NBA schedule for the first half came out opening week, of course, December 22nd, which amazingly is 3 weeks from today. Like the NBA, like the NBA season will start. Today's the second. The NBA season will start 3 weeks from today. Let's say today's the first, so no, 3 weeks from 3 weeks from yesterday. I apologize. Today's Wednesday, so 3 weeks from less than 3 weeks from yesterday, the NBA season will start. Training camps open this week. You have so opening night, you'll see Clippers and Lakers, Boston and Miami. Clippers, Lakers, Boston, and I believe Boston and Miami. Um, the Christmas Day matchups, I had a little issue with the Christmas Day matchups. Now on the corner, where I'm pointing, these are the Christmas Day matchups that the league assigned. Yeah, the Lakers, Dallas, which would be the prime time one, 8 o'clock. Clippers, Denver will be the nightcap. Milwaukee, Golden State will be, I believe, the second game. First game of the day will be Miami, New Orleans, and the 5 o'clock game will be Boston, Brooklyn. All excellent matchups. A lot of star power, of course. Uh, all the teams that were in at least the Eastern Conference, the Eastern and Western Conference semifinals, with the exception of say Houston, are where a lot of them are there. All the conference finalists are there in regards to the Lakers, Miami, Boston, and Denver. Problem is, to me, I know. Listen, Luca is a guy. His star is skyrocketing. There's no question about it. But to me, I would have had Lakers Clippers. These are the matchups I would have had on Christmas Day, preferably. I would have had Lakers Clippers, Boston, Miami, Boston, Golden State, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee, Dallas, Denver, New Orleans. Now, and by the way, apologies. Miami Boston is not opening night. That actually is going to be on a Wednesday. Um, Golden State Brooklyn is going to be opening night. That'll be opening night along with the Lakers Clippers. I would have just moved those games. I would have just had Golden State Brooklyn. I would have just flipped those games on Christmas and had the Lakers, the Clippers on Christmas Day, and Golden State Brooklyn on Christmas Day. That would have been my preference, to be honest with you. But I understand what the NBA is doing. Luka is going to be the next. Luka is the next guy in the league, along with the Greek Freak. But Luka is generational talent. Um, and where and you want to have the young gun versus the current king of the league in regards to LeBron James. I understand it from that standpoint. The league is all about its stars and always has been. But I just don't think in terms of the best possible the Christmas Day matchup, I think you could have had a better matchup. Yeah, I mean, you could have had Lakers Clippers. You could have had Lakers Celtics, to be honest with you, on Christmas Day. Those two teams will probably, Boston is going to be in the mix to get to the finals. So, but it's a minor thing. It's not. I'm not. It's not a major complaint, but just a little minor complaint in terms of what the NBA and in terms of what they're scheduling. A couple things. Of course, Kemba Walker will be out until January. Um, so he had some knee issues, of course, throughout the course of the bubble, but still played. Still played and played up until the Eastern Conference Finals. So maybe this is more about precautionary than anything else. But he'll be out to January, which means something in a season like this. Only 72 games. But if you're Boston, but you still have your two best players and three of your four best players in terms of Tatum, Brown, and Marcus Smart. So they should be fine until he gets back. Of course, Week 12 is finally in the books. Again, the NFL is they were going to get this Baltimore Pittsburgh game in if they would have played it on Friday. I mean, they were determined to get this game in. We've already talked about that. Couple things that stood out about Week 12. Kansas City, Tampa Bay was a fun game. We gotta make we have to make a choice, especially with the media. Which is it with Tom Brady? Is he done or is he the MVP? You have to pick a narrative. When Tom Brady plays well, it's like, whoa, we've never seen this before. 43 years old, he could play another 5 years. Tom Brady throws a couple picks. Oh my, yeah, he's just, he's done. He's done. Stick a fork in him. He hates Bruce Arians. They don't get along. It's just you got to pick a narrative. Please pick a narrative if you're the media. Listen, that game probably shouldn't even been as close as it was. You know, Kansas City left a lot of points on the board in that particular game. They should have scored a lot more points considering the yardage. Right now, and we'll talk about this later. Right now, they have the MVP of the league in my book in terms of Patrick Mahomes. Um, and Kansas City can beat you in a variety of ways. They can beat you they can beat you run the football. They can beat you with Mahomes. They can win. Now the defense is not great, but frankly, their defense doesn't have to be great. They get enough. They get enough of a pass rush and make enough plays to give their offense to give their offense enough possessions to where you have no answer for Patrick Mahomes. Again, I would love to see Kansas City, Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship, but other than Pittsburgh, I don't think. I think maybe New Orleans could bother them in the Super Bowl with their defense if they're looking at teams that could possibly beat Kansas City and deny them a second repeat championship. But that list, of course, is very short. As far as Tampa Bay goes, I think people are way too hard on Tampa Bay as a team. They're 7-5. They're in the playoff mix. They have an excellent defense. Tom Brady, you've gotten more out of Tom Brady than you could have ever imagined at this stage in his career. I mean, Tom Brady, for the most part, he's had 2 bad games against the Saints. He wasn't horrible against Kansas City. Again, had a couple picks, but he wasn't horrible in this game. Brought him back somewhat back, kept him from getting blown out. But I think I've been completely satisfied with Tom Brady's performance this year. I don't know what he's not at that level. I'm not at that stage in his career where he's going to carry a football team. It's just not going to happen. You need a lot around him. You need a solid running game. You need an excellent defense. So I don't know what people expected out of Tom Brady. I think if you're a Tampa Bay fan, you have to be happy about what you got now, Tom Brady, throughout the course of the season for the most part. At the age of 43, so would you rather have Jameis Winston throwing 35 interceptions, or would you rather have a guy that's going to have you in the playoffs? And by the way, other than New Orleans, there's nobody in the NFC that should scare or should make Tampa Bay nervous. There's not like the Rams. Again, I don't trust Jared Goff. Still don't trust Green Bay's defense. We know the NFC East is a joke. Who else? Who else is there? Seattle. Now, Seattle has played better defensively of late, but keep this in mind: they were going against a Philadelphia offense that's mediocre right now. But the Seattle defense has picked up. So if Seattle's defense picks up, they could be interesting in the playoffs because we know what Russell Wilson brings to the table. But if I'm Tampa Bay, they get to the playoffs. I would fully expect to compete for for an NFC Championship and to get to the Super Bowl. Like they will be in that mix without question. I don't think they'll get there, but they will certainly be in that mix if they get to the playoffs. I mentioned Philadelphia and Seattle. In regards to Carson Wentz, a lot. I just don't. I don't understand. I can understand how people are down on Wentz right now, but what I don't get is, from an organizational standpoint, of how you give a guy the contract you gave him, and then you don't want to surround him with the necessary pieces that could help him could keep him at that level where he was at in 2017, where I thought should have been an MVP. I know Brady won it that year. I thought Wentz should have been MVP that year, or even last year when he carried them single-handedly to the playoffs. They have no weapons on offense. The offensive line is a dumpster fire, to say the least. Jason Peters is done. Lane Johnson's out for the season. They have one guy who you trust on the offensive line right now, and that's Kelsey. That's it. The rest of the offensive line is bad. Look at their running backs. Look at their position players. Alshon Jeffrey is a shell of what he once was. Are you scared of Miles Sanders, and who's the other guy? Dallas Boston. Oh, but no, not Dallas. Boston. I think it's Boston Scott. Like they, other than the tight ends, and we know, and Ertz is out. Goddard is very good, but they just don't have the weapons. Yeah, I mean, again, Wentz, he turns over the ball way too much, and even when he was at a Pro Bowl level, he still turned over. That's been an issue for him throughout the course of throughout the course of his career. Listen. I think Wentz is still a franchise quarterback, and I'm telling you right now, I would trade if I'm as a Washington football fan, trust me, I would take Carson Wentz on my team right now. Right now, I would love to have Carson Wentz on my team, giving him some weapons, give him a solid running game, and he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Again, it's baffling to watch Philadelphia, considering where they were a couple of years ago. And that's, we know what happens with the Super Bowl hangover. Teams win the Super Bowl, it's hard to repeat. I wasn't expecting them to repeat, but it's kind of, I guess it's kind of been a steady decline with them. They made the playoffs. They have made the playoffs. It's not like they've missed the playoffs the last 2 or 3 years. They have made. If they miss the playoffs this year, it'll be the first time since 2016 that they've missed the playoffs. So they've made the playoffs 3 straight years coming into this year. But I guess more was expected from them this year. But again, I think I look at that roster. The defense is good, but it's not what it once was. It's a top 10 defense. When they were very good, when they were Super Bowl contenders, they were a legit top 5 defense. So it's slipped enough to where there was a point where it was a dominant defense. Now it's just very good. It's very good defense. Not bad, but very good. But offensively, I just can't understand. Again, to me, I looked at it, it's very simple to me. It's just they don't have the person, they don't have the horses. They don't have the horses, and Carson Wentz is taking a beating. I mean, Seattle does not. Seattle's pass rush has picked up a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but it's not. They don't have a great pass rush. They had 6 sacks in that game. That's 6 sacks in that game. So, listen. I think with Wentz, I don't see. They're kind of going to be stuck with him for the next 2 years. I shouldn't even phrase it like that, because again, I still think Wentz is a top 12, top 15 quarterback. He hasn't played like it this year, but as far as ability, I still think he's in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. They gotta get pieces around him. They're drafting you look at their last couple drafts, they've been bad. They've had some bad drafts, even free agency, where it's not so much picking up superstar players, but even picking up players who have been productive. They've struck out in free agency and in the draft over the past 2 or 3 years. And it's been a slow death. It hasn't exposed itself because they've been in the playoffs. And maybe this sounds crazy. Maybe the best thing would have been for them to miss the playoffs in 2018 or 2019 to kind of show that they needed to kind of reload the roster. But that front office has not done a good job with in terms of their personnel. You want to knock Doug Peterson? You can knock Doug Peterson. He's a coach. We give him credit when they win, when they play well. The team hasn't played well this year, so he has to take the blame. That's just part of being head coach in the National Football League. But I don't think Doug Peterson forgot how to coach. I mean, look at his win-loss record. This is his 5th year, 3 playoff appearances in the Super Bowl, and a great player, and 4-2 in the playoffs. Not too many coaches have that resume. Not too many coaches outside of Belichick, Andy Reid, and Mike Tomlin can match that type of resume. So I just think Philadelphia has to kind of take a step back and reevaluate their scouting and their player personnel and Howie Roseman and their front office more than anything. We already talked about COVID with the NFL. Buffalo, of course, San Francisco will be on Buffalo, San Francisco will be next Monday night. You have two Monday night games: Buffalo, San Francisco, and of course Washington, Pittsburgh will both be on Monday night, and Baltimore, Dallas will be next Tuesday. As far as the MVP race goes, you see Aaron Rodgers here, but I think right now the MVP is Patrick Mahomes. Now, Rodgers right now in Vegas, Mahomes is clearly ahead in Vegas. Like he's number one, Rodgers is number two, and he's ahead by a substantial amount in terms of the betting line. But I think it's a close race. Right now, I mean, Rodgers leads the league in touchdown passes, highest rated quarterback. But Kansas City is 10-1, and you have Patrick Mahomes is on this just ridiculous streak right now. This stretch of games he's had where he's been off the charts, and he only has 2 interceptions. So I mean, their numbers are basically a toss-up. Mahomes has less interceptions, more yards. Rodgers has more touchdown passes, higher quarterback rating. However you want to decipher that. So either one of these guys could win the MVP. I think they've clearly separated themselves from the rest of the pack, from Russell Wilson, from there's been some talk of maybe Henry from Tennessee. It is almost impossible for a running back to win the MVP. It's not impossible. It's very hard. You look at the last 2 running backs that have won MVPs. Adrian Peterson in 2012, Daniel Thompson in 2006. Adrian Peterson had almost 2,100 yards rushing in 2012 and averaged 6 yards a carry. I mean, he had an all-time great year, one of the great running back years ever. And that was a year where he was just like historically great. But Daniel Thompson had 1,800 yards rushing and scored the NFL record 28 touchdowns. So in 2006, so you have to do something that spectacular, and have the quarterbacks not be as great as they normally are, as normally the top guys are, and for a running back to have any chance of winning the MVP. I don't see it happening this year. With Henry. And Henry's on pace. He has an outside chance of 2,000 yards. If he averages like 149 yards, which probably won't happen, but it's with him, it's doable. The way he gets stronger as the game goes along, and he's getting stronger as the season goes along. We remember what he did last season. Unstoppable. So it's not out of the possibility that he can get to 2,000 yards, but as long as you have Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes playing at this level, it is, it's going to probably be a third place finish for Mr. Henry. For Mr. Henry, who will probably have to settle for just, being a first-team All-Pro. Of course, this week you had past weekend you had the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones, Battle of Legends fight. Before we get to that fight, I have to talk about the Nate Robinson, Jake Robinson, Jake Paul. So I'm gonna try to be serious in regards to Nate Robinson, because the jokes have been flying, the memes have been just all over the place. In all seriousness, though, I'm trying to be serious. Trust me. You don't see my face right now, but I'm trying not to smile, because I just had that meme of him laying down like somebody had gotten shot, in my head right now. But all jokes aside, Nate Robinson should have never been in the ring with this guy. And it really, Nate Robinson made about $25 million over the course of his NBA career, 3-time slam dunk champion. So he got some, I'm sure he had a few endorsements based off that alone. It just makes you wonder what would possess a guy 36 years old to choose this as a means to get a bag. Now, he's going to make he's going to make at least $600,000 on this fight. I've heard I've heard numbers he could make from anywhere from 600,000 to $1 million. You know, Uncle Sam gets his cut. That'll probably be say $300,000, $500,000. But it's still a bag. But I just wondered, like, where are you in your life that you would choose this as a means to your post basketball career? Boxing is a sport, but it's not a game. We fighters have died in the ring. Okay. Um, you don't just get like these guys, Snoop said it right. Snoop said it perfectly. And by the way, like Snoop is a natural commentator. I mean, in terms of sports, he really is, and I'm definitely someone who's hard to impress. As many sports as long as I've been watching sports and different analysts and commentators, Snoop was spectacular as a commentator with that fight and in terms of that fight. Um, but with Nate Robinson, like you don't, boxing is a lifestyle, not a sport. That's what Snoop said. It's a lifestyle, not a sport. And you're facing a guy who's been training, who's been fighting now for 2 years, 2 to 3 years, trains like 6 days a week, going up against other professionals, sparring against other professionals, has really taken it seriously. Versus a guy in Nate Robinson who, now I heard this over the weekend. Well, Nate's a great athlete. He was a great athlete. Nate Robinson's 36 years old. He's not in terms of athleticism. He's not a spring chicken. There's a reason why he's been out the league for like the last 5 years. I know he played overseas 2 years ago, but he's been out the NBA for like 5 years now. Like, boxing is called a sweet science for a reason. It's not just going in there and throwing punches or rushing a dude, which got Nate, almost got him killed when he rushed Jake Paul in the second round and got laid out. So he never should have been in the ring. Again, it begs the question: why has he chosen this as a secondary profession post basketball career? What has he done with his money? Was there a plan after basketball? So it begs a lot of questions. And I'm telling you right now, if I were in the NBA, if I were in the NBA and I was a guy who was one of these fringe players or one of these guys who wasn't, not a superstar and wasn't receiving a max contract, if I'm a ranking file NBA player, I would be looking at what happened to Nate Robinson. And I'm saying, and I would be saying to myself, that will not be me. That damn sure won't be me. So let me start planning right now for my post basketball career because I don't have Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Chris Paul type money to sit on. And that if you want to, forget it, fuck all the memes. And again, I was laughing too. Nate gonna get these jokes. We understand that. But on a serious note, that was to me the biggest takeaway with the Nate Robinson fight. Why are you in this? Why, like, you're not going to do this professionally. You're not. This is not going to be something you continuously fight again. You're not going to have another fight. You should not fight again. You should never. You should never put on any. You should never put on gloves to be. He should never have another fight again. Maybe he wants to spar. Or he wants to go out there and use boxing as a means for exercise. That's fine. But he should never. He should never competitively fight ever again. Ever. But if I'm a ranking file player, a role player, barely cracking a rotation, or I'm a guy that comes off the bench, I'm saying to myself, that will not be me. Tell you that right now. As far as the Tyson Jones fight, I thought Mike Tyson took it easy on Jones. To be honest with you, most of his power shots were to the body. If you notice, um, Roy Jones. I'm not gonna say I heard some people say Roy Jones didn't want to be in there. I disagree with that. I think Roy Jones just wanted to just get out in one piece. I think Roy Jones always wanted to fight Tyson. It was something that was on his bucket list. But again, the thing about Roy Jones is, and when Roy Jones was at his peak, and remember, for my younger audience, Roy Jones is pound for pound one of the greatest boxers of all time in any division, any weight range. He is pound for pound one of the great. He is a all-time immortal boxer, period. And for a decade, he ran the sport. For a decade, he was the best boxer. In the decade of the 90s, he was the fighter of the decade in the 90s, period. So, but when he was at his peak, Roy overwhelmed you with athleticism and power. That blend, he had that blend. There are probably only two other boxers that I can think of that had that perfect mix of athleticism and power, athleticism, speed, and power, and that was Sugar Ray Robinson and Muhammad Ali. Before he was Muhammad Ali, when he was Cassius Clay, and before he of course was before he had got banned from the sport due to not refusing to go to Vietnam. That Muhammad Ali, the one that beat that Cassius Clay, the one that beat the hell out of Sonny Liston twice. Those two boxers are the greatest combination of speed and power that I've ever witnessed in regards to watching them on film, reading stuff that you read, listening to historians, especially the late and great Burt Sugar. Roy Jones would be third on that list, but still, we hadn't seen since Cassius Clay that combination of speed and power. Once Roy lost, and Roy started getting knocked out, because he was easy to hit. It's just that simple. It became easy to hit, and unlike Muhammad Ali, Roy was not one of these fighters who was going to do the rope-a-dope. He was not going to be one of these fighters who was going to win with guile or with I don't want to question his toughness, because anybody, I'm not questioning the toughness of anybody that steps in that ring, but he was not a craftsman. Like, he was not like Bernard Hopkins is a guy who Bernard Hopkins is a guy who can beat you, who is the polar opposite. He's not going to overwhelm you with athleticism. He's strictly a technical genius and one of the great defensive fighters of all time. And he could win, a fight just on sheer tactics and as a tactician. That was not Roy Jones. Roy Jones is not a tactician, and he was not a slugger from that standpoint. Once that athleticism dissipated, it was a wrap. And remember, Roy Jones, he was on top of the sport for a decade. At some point, it was going to, even longer than a decade. I mean, really, Roy Jones had, he started losing in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003, Antonio Tarver, a couple other guys. There's one guy that's eluded me, Glenn, who was Canadian. I forgot the guy's name that knocked him out as well. But he started getting knocked out a lot towards the end of his career. So, you look at this fight, he was a pinata for Tyson. He that speed, athleticism, of course, is gone. And Tyson could have knocked Roy Jones's head off if he really wanted to. I think Tyson, wanted to get out, wanted to go out there, put on a show, get a good workout in, kind of scratch that itch. But if this would have Mike Tyson, as far as, and I ain't even talking about from a skill standpoint, I'm talking about in terms of his mindset. If this would have Mike Tyson of the 90s, early 2000s, it really wouldn't have ended well for Roy Jones. I mean, Mike Tyson is a completely changed person since he retired from boxing, since we last seen him box. So, and he clearly won the fight. I think they just, they did the draw thing just, out of, I don't know why they did, why, they called it a draw. But I guess they just were happy that both guys were able to walk out the ring at ages 55, 54, and 51. But again, I can see Tyson. Tyson's going to fight again. I think Roy is done or should be done. To be honest with you, and again, I don't see Tyson now. I think Tyson's smart enough not to get in a ring with a Tyson Fury, or Anthony Joshua. I think he seems to be kind of like want to do what John McEnroe did with the tennis with this legends. Want to have like a legends division. So maybe he calls. Maybe he gets guys like maybe Lance Lewis comes back. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he gets this going with this Legends division. Riddick Bowe. They've already been some rumors about Holyfield, which I would love to see. I would love to see how Holyfield Tyson, considering where he left off in the mid to late '90s with the ear biting and all that. And I would love to see that fight again. But I was very impressed with Tyson. He was in excellent shape. Physically, he's in great shape. Um, and overall, you have to consider this night, especially with what happened with Nate Robinson, to be a major success. Lil Wayne not being there, I think was a plus. Snoop, taking his place. So everything that could possibly go right for this particular event went right. To be honest with you, um, as far as boxing goes, coming up this week, of course, you have Danny Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. So definitely looking forward to that fight as well. But again, enjoyed watching Tyson back in the ring. Kind of brought back a nostalgia with the no socks, black shorts. But so it definitely was worth. Uh, you know, definitely would have been. If you bought the fight, you definitely got your money's worth without question. This is, of course, the Real Deal Podcast. Cyril Gerald-Quinn. Um, check out check out my latest podcast, The Wire Remix, Season 3, Episode 10, Reformation. Of course, I was joined by one, Robert Sapp. We broke down that episode. It was a very good episode, of course. And now this weekend, we will break down a classic, iconic episode, Middle Ground. It is listen, if you have not listened to the podcast, go binge all 10 episodes of my podcast and listen, because you have to be caught up for this episode, because this is going to be a major episode. You know, of just one of the great television episodes of all time. So that'll be coming up this weekend. But of course, you can always check out my latest episode with the Wire Remix, Real Deal Podcast, the Wire Remix, Season 3, Episode 10. Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, been in the news lately in regards for different reasons. By all accounts, you look at Kevin Hart and Dave Chappelle are like the Drake and Kendrick Lamar of comedy right now. There's no question that Dave Chappelle is at the top of the comedy world as far as when you talk about the GOAT, the best. Is Dave Chappelle, right? He is the best comic comedian. He is the best comedian on earth right now. And I don't think it's not even close. Just like I think Kendrick Lamar is the best rapper on the planet right now. And it's very interesting with them where they're at in their respective careers in terms of their perspectives, their perspectives on life. I watched the Kevin Hart special. Finally, got a chance to watch it. Wasn't as bad as people were making it out to be. To be honest with you, and I didn't. Now, keep in mind, I did not go in with great expectations. I've long said that Kevin Hart is not a great stand-up comedian. He's never been a great or a pure stand-up comedian. He's had moments here and there early in his career where you laugh at some jokes or some bits that he's done. But I don't. I have not rewatched the Kevin Hart comedy special maybe ever. I don't think I've ever rewatched in recent memory. It's been at least five, maybe longer, 5 years since I watched Kevin Hart's comedy special. To be honest with you. But with that being said, he is the biggest star in the. He's the highest grossing comedian last year. He's in every movie. He's everywhere. He's without question in terms of success and box office. He's near at the top of the heap. That goes without saying. You can knock it, stand up all you want. You can't deny how successful he is and has been, and basically for the latter part of the better part of the last, you know, decade. To be honest with you, early 2010s all up until 2020 right now as we head into 2021. But I found it interesting. His special, his perspective about giving zero fucks, and it came off as like he's not happy with being a celebrity, and he it, he it does I'm not questioning Kevin Hart's his mental space right now. I'm not saying he's depressed or not happy with life, nothing like that. I just don't think he doesn't seem to be like he doesn't seem to be in a good place in regards to his professionally, which is incredible to say considering how successful he is. Like, there was some gems in that special, some very introspective gems in that special that he did. You can talk about it all you want, and it wasn't a classic, and it wasn't certainly something that I won't rewatch. But it, he said some things that, in regards to where he's at, um, that stood out, in regards to being a celebrity, you know, not wanting to come out the house, and beyond the fact of COVID. And I think with Kevin, I think that he's at a place in his career. I think he's at his peak, and I just think that he probably needs to just step back out of the spotlight, maybe for a couple months, maybe even for a year, to kind of catch his breath. You can be a workaholic and you can work yourself to a point to where you you get burned out. And the problem with Kevin Hart is, the problem is, he talks about giving zero fucks when he absolutely gives 1,000 fucks. That can be, I'm saying he gives zero fucks can be furthest from the truth. Let me tell you why it can be furthest from the truth. Because every time he receives any type of criticism, he responds. He responds via Twitter, Instagram, whatever. He responds. So he clearly gives a fuck. There's no two ways about it. And he's, at the end of the day, he's a human being. At the end of the day, he's a human being. But I think myself, I just think I think Kevin Hart just needs to take a break. Just take a break. He can still put people on. He still has he still has a production company. He can still do stuff behind the scenes without being in the spotlight. And I say, and that's that is one of his problems. Right then and there, right there is the fact that he loves to be in the spotlight. Loves the spot. He loves the lights. Fame could be a drug. Fame is like a drug. It can be a drug, fella, and a lot of these guys, a lot of these celebrities just love being a celebrity. They love just being famous, love being talked about, love trending. As far as Dave Chappelle, I watched the special Unforgiven. It's only about 19 minutes long, or 18 minutes and 40 seconds. It's very short. Um, I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of what he talked about. You don't need me to tell you that anyway, because you probably already know in regards to Chappelle's show and Netflix and all that. You can check it out for yourself and find that out. I just I just find him to be a polar opposite of where Kevin Hart is at. And again, I'm not comparing. We clearly know who is a superior comedian. That's not even an issue. And I mean, it's not a knock on Kevin Hart to say Dave Chappelle is the best. Nobody's coming close to Dave Chappelle right now in terms of as a pure stand-up. No one. It's just he's he's playing in a different league right now. But right now, I look at him. You look at his perspective on life, and there's a peace of mind that he has right now that is frankly is kind of rare for a celebrity, a guy at his with his talent or a celebrity to find at this stage in their careers. And you look at what he doesn't care about trying to make people laugh anymore. He really, I mean, you watch 846, you watch Unforgiven, you watch even with Saturday Night Live, he does not give a shit about trying to make you and I laugh. If we laugh at what he says, it's basically a byproduct of his storytelling, of his communication. I don't, and he's completely made that transition. And I was thinking about it. That takes the type of security you have to have is just it's unfathomable, to be honest with you. It's because your job as a comedian, you've been taught and you've grown up and you've been groomed to make people laugh. That's what you've been taught. That's my job. My job is to make you laugh, make people laugh, bring joy to people's, bring joy from a standpoint to someone who maybe has had a bad day or is having a bad week for those forever 30 minutes, an hour, however long your set is. Chappelle is so completely comfortable in terms of where he's at, in terms of being in his own skin. So in being in his own skin, he's not seeking mine's or yours approval at all. He really doesn't need me or you to laugh at his jokes or to laugh at what he says. And I just I just think it's very interesting to watch these two in terms of in terms of where they're at in their careers. It's fascinating. It's fascinating, to be honest with you. Both highly successful, both at the top of their games, um, business wise, and in terms of Chappelle as an artist. And one is at peace, and in Dave Chappelle, and with Kevin Hart, I don't see it. I think he's kind of searching for that peace. Now, I'm not saying Kevin Hart doesn't enjoy being Kevin Hart. He has kids, has a wife, survived a car accident. Survived a car accident. Fully recovered from that. I'm not saying Kevin Hart has thoughts, has a mental illness or something. No, I'm not going that route in that direction. But what I'm just saying to you is just fascinating to watch these two, you know, iconic comedians and just where they're at in their careers and in their various perspectives on life right now. That's all. With the NBA, getting back to the NBA. So if you haven't read this piece, Taylor Rooks, who is fast becoming, I think she's only 28, who is fast becoming one of the top uh, media personalities, reporters in the NBA and maybe in sports right now. She is a rising star. She has a piece in GQ about the NBA bubble. It is it is just, again, I'm not going to step on it as far as giving out details. I encourage you to read it for yourself. If you want someone who was there on the inside and who right now has as much accessibility to players, as to NBA players, as any reporter in the business right now. Like she is, because, and listen, let's be honest, if you've seen if you've seen Taylor Rooks, it's not hard to figure out why players would want to speak to her. She's an attractive young lady, but she's a great reporter, and and she again is a reason why she's in the position that she's in right now. And it's not, trust me, it's not because of her looks. Despite that, because by the way, there are a number of beautiful, young, talented reporters work in the sports media. They become a dime a dozen, to be honest with you. So if you're not bringing nothing to the table but looks, then you're just not gonna last long. But this piece is, read last night, is extremely well written, detailed on top of details, great story, great storytelling. And again, this is, the kind of access that most people will not get. I was just blown away by how vulnerable players were in her presence, considering the circumstances. They're down there in a bubble, basically 2.5 to 3 months away from their families, in the midst of a pandemic, getting tested every day. But despite that, she was able to get out a lot of great details, just a number of nuggets out of the bubble, that took place this past summer. So, send GQ magazine, the January edition. Just again, extremely well written. I certainly highly recommend the article. Um, and hats off to her. She is a rising. She's not a rise. She's a star right now, without question. She's an absolute star right now. She's definitely on that Jamel Hill carry champion track, in regards to what they're doing in their respective careers. So check it out. Um, I think it's called Inside the Bubble. Um, I forgot the full title of it. It was the world's magic place, the magic place on earth. So it was a Disney. It was Inside the Bubble, and it had a Disney phrase, as well. But you'll find it in this month's issue, of course, of GQ. Really, real thoughts. I kind of been talking a lot. I don't know if I have any. Do I have any real thoughts right now? Um, Again, I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday. Um, we're it's been a challenging year to say the least. But remember, you're alive. Hopefully, you're healthy. 2021 will be here before you know it. And the bottom line is lean into something that you love to do. If you love to read, lean into reading. If you love to, you know, if you love to, you want to rearrange your house, lean into that. You have a garden, lean into that. Find something that you love to do, and absolutely just throw yourself into it. And if you don't have something that you love to do, find it. Find it. Don't just be existing. Live a life. Don't just exist. It's one thing 2020 has taught us. We gotta live. Can't just be out here existing. So those are my real thoughts, as I wrap up this latest podcast. This will be up before the night is over. Um, Definitely before midnight. As always, I have a wonderful rest of the evening. Have a wonderful rest of the week. I will see you next time. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You see it here, www.youtube.com, Real Deal Podcast. You can find my podcast anywhere: Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio. I am all over. And of course, I will post this on all of my social media accounts, social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's going to wrap it up. I will see you next time. Have a great rest of the night.